Marx the most influential thinker of the 20th century? Throughout history, there have been many great thinkers who have helped shape the world we live in today. From Plato to the present day, there are people whose ideas have had a huge impact on society. However, none compared to the influence of one man, Karl Marx. Marx's theories have literally changed the course of history, leading to the collapse of entire societies and the rise of new ones. His ideas are more relevant today than ever before, and it's crucial that we understand what they were and why they matter. Welcome to our channel, and today we will be taking a look at some of Karl Marx's most important ideas and how they shaped the 20th century. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn about one of the most influential men of the modern age. So let's start by asking the question, who was Karl Marx? Karl Marx was born in 1818 in Prussia, which is now Germany. He studied law and philosophy at university and became a journalist. Marx was deeply affected by the poverty and inequality he saw around him and began to believe that capitalism was the cause. He developed his own theory of communism as an alternative to capitalism. And in 1848, he and his friend Friedrich Engels published the Communist Manifesto, which outlines their ideas for a classless, stateless society. Marx's ideas spread quickly throughout Europe, and soon he was being called the father of communism. But Marx didn't like this label because he believed that communism was inevitable and that it would happen whether he had written about it or not. In fact, he thought that all history was the history of class struggle and that communism was just the next step in that struggle. So, now that we know who Marx was and how he got his ideas across, let's take a look at some of those ideas. And the first one is the idea of historical materialism. This is the idea that economic forces shape society, and that changes in the way we produce and distribute goods lead to changes in other areas of life, such as politics, culture, and religion. For example, Marx argued that the invention of agriculture led to the development of cities and states. The Industrial Revolution led to the rise of industrial capitalism and modern democracy, and he believed that these changes would eventually lead to a communist society. The second idea that Marx had was the idea of class struggle. Marx believed that throughout history, there has always been a conflict between different classes of people. For example, there was the conflict between the ruling class and the working class. This conflict is what drives social change, according to Marx, and he believed that eventually the working class would overthrow the ruling class and establish a communist society. The third idea that Marx had was the idea of alienation. Marx believed that under capitalism, workers are alienated from the work they do, from the products they make, and from each other. Alienation happens when people are treated as if they are just cogs in a machine, and when their work doesn't reflect their creativity or their humanity. For example, Marx argued that under capitalism, workers don't own the products they make. Instead, those products belong to the capitalist who owns the means of production. This means that workers are alienated from their work because they do unsee the end product as something that reflects their creativity or their labor. Additionally, Marx argued that workers are also alienated from each other because capitalism encourages competition among workers. This competition makes it difficult for workers to form meaningful relationships with each other because they are constantly trying to one-up each other in order to keep their jobs or get raises. Finally, Marx believed that capitalism also alienates workers from themselves because capitalism reduces everything to an economic transaction. This means that workers are seen as nothing more than their ability to produce commodities. As a result, workers lose sight of their own humanity and become alienated from themselves. The fourth idea that Marx had was the idea of the dictatorship of the proletariat. This is the idea that after the working class overthrows the ruling class, a temporary government called the dictatorship of the proletariat will be needed to maintain order and prevent the bourgeoisie from regaining power. Eventually, this government will become unnecessary and we will reach a truly classless and stateless society. The fifth idea that Marx had was the idea of communism. This is a way of organizing society in which the means of production are owned by the community as a whole, and everyone is able to contribute to society in whatever way they can and are rewarded based on their needs. There is no private property and no class system. Everyone is equal. Now, this is a very basic definition of communism, and there are many different types of communism. However, this should give you a general understanding of what Marx meant by communism. Now that we have covered some of Marx's main ideas, let's take a look at why they are still relevant today. Marx's ideas are still relevant today because many of the problems he identified in the Communist Manifesto are still with us today. For example, Marx predicted that capitalism would lead to massive amounts of inequality and poverty. And unfortunately, this is still a reality for millions of people around the world. Marx also predicted that capitalism would lead to the concentration of power in the hands of a few. Again, this is still a reality today as we see more and more corporations controlling our governments and our lives. Finally, Marx predicted that capitalism would eventually be overthrown by the working class. Whether or not this prediction will come true remains to be seen. However, the fact that so many people still believe in communism shows that Marx's ideas continue to resonate with many people around the world. In conclusion, Karl Marx was one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century. His ideas about historical materialism, class struggle, alienation, the dictatorship of the proletariat and communism have had a profound impact on the way we think about society. Even though he died in 1883, his ideas are still relevant today and are still shaping our world. Do you agree or disagree with Marx's ideas? Let us know in the comments below. Now, before we go, I want to ask you for a favor. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Then it really helps us out. And it tells us that you want to see more videos like this in the future. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Now check out these other videos we have on great thinkers. They're awesome. Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the greatest philosophers of all time. Who was Nikola Tesla, and why should you care? And what was the biggest mistake of Albert Einstein's life? See you over there?